forward to a very interesting night of quite a bit of discussion concerning the big day. This is Budget Day, of course, 2022. We've got some noble figures here in our studio this evening, and they'll be helping us go through the budget, and our program tonight is dubbed Budget Analysis. Let me quickly introduce you to my guests. I've got just to my immediate left Mr. Dr. Winston Garvey, who is a former senator, and we also have Mr. Stephen Fletcher, who is a strategy consultant. That's just to his left. And the senior one to all of us here, of course, is Mr. Church, Mr. Michael Church, and he is an agricultural economist. So I want to say welcome to all our panelists here this evening. Good evening, gentlemen. Nice to have you on Beyond the Headlines.
Good evening. Very much. Good
yeah, thank you very much.
I realize that we've all gone dark colored this evening, and I should let our let our listeners know that it wasn't planned. It was just.
I do have a bright one here.
Oh, that's the only bright. All right, so I did say that it's a big day. Budget day is always big when the nation is in fact anticipating and listening with, in some cases, bated breath as to what the budget plans would look like, and it was in fact unfolded today. So let's go. Let me ask you first, Dr. Fletcher, how important is a national budget? Well, in fact, I'll ask all three of you to chime in.
The national budget is, by the way, may I first begin by saying good night, good evening, wherever you're in, whichever part of the world you're in, listening to this program, to all your viewers and listeners. Good night, and looking forward to good exchange of views this evening. A national budget in any country is very critical. It's very important, because like the budget for a household or a company, it really tells you where the income is going to be coming from to finance the expenditure that the country intends or has to meet. So it is very important that citizens be aware and be informed as to the sources of revenue and the expenditure that such sources of revenue is going to meet. It speaks as well to the focus that the government of the day is going to put on the development of the country. It gives an indication of the priorities that will be focused on. It talks about the general philosophy as well of the government of the day, and it gives certainly the citizens an indication of how the expenditure, in particular for citizens' point of view, will benefit themselves. In national budget, citizens are least likely to wonder much about the income side. It's always about, the expense, how they'll benefit. On the revenue side, they think, well, are you going to tax me, kind of thing, and citizens kind of very wary of taxation. So that is an issue. But the budget is very critical, very important to the lifeblood of the country.
Dr. Kawi.
Well, thanks very much for having me here and representing the New National Party. The New National Party obviously is very concerned about state of development in the country and to ensure that everything goes according to plan. And given what just Dr. Fletcher would have just said as it relates to the importance of a budget, and if you have to critically analyze it, you need to know exactly what is there. I have a statement which I would like to read, and the New National Party notes with concern the non-delivery of the hard copies of the 2023 budget statement. After today's presentation, this document traditionally is presented to all members of Parliament and then the general public immediately after the presentation of the statement by the Minister of Finance. This is the first instance in modern memory where this has not been done. As such, members of the New National Party team have been restricted in their ability to respond in a proper and fitting manner in the short term to the budget statement 2023. We call on those responsible to ensure that the proper standards and expected courtesies of Grenada's Parliament are respected and effected. While a digital copy was circulated prior to 4 p.m. this afternoon, and this based solely on the interjection by the leader of His Majesty's opposition at the end of the sitting, it does not allow our team ample time to scrutinize the 80-plus pages of information from a lengthy presentation and respond in short order to what have been many requests by the media for comments on said documents. The New National Party is prepared after the receipt of the document and it is studied to be involved in any fora to discuss said document. Prior to this, we are not in a position to give justice and to do justice to the nation and the nation's people in providing information on a document that we do not have sight of in its entirety. So as such, we are not able to proceed any further in this discussion tonight. And I want to thank the host, you, Pastor Worme, and GBN, of course, for giving us the invitation. But unfortunately, we're not in a position to respond. And come to think about it, it's an important budget. And if the opposition is to make a meaningful contribution to the governance of this country, you must give us the resources to do this. So, and not having it, I don't think it is going to be justice to any of us. Thank you.
Does that suggest that you would not necessarily be participating in any further?
No, well, obviously I wouldn't be able to.
Yes, but my contention is, Dr. Gawe, is that could have been intimated to our producers, prior to the program, and that could have been told to the producers, look, we have not received important documentation, and as a result, we can't appear on the program. And I think that's more protocol, in my humble opinion, than what we get here tonight. Then there could have been an official statement or whatever, that, look, we did not get the documents that we needed, so we won't be able to give a good rebuttal or whatever the case may be, or comments or analysis about it. But I think it's a little shabby. Just as you say that it wasn't a protocol thing to do, I think it's a little shabby too, that you actually got onto the program and then you say, well, we can't do anything on the program. I think it should have been said before. If we're talking about being protocoled, in procedures, I don't think that was protocol. So two wrongs don't make a right, does it?
Well, I defer to what you have your analysis, primarily because we're talking about the governance of the country. It's not about your feeling and my feeling. This is about the representation of people.
I do understand that.
If I was to send a statement, the statement would not, whoever going to read it will not convey what I've just said. The important thing here is to say to the nation that we are prepared to make a meaningful contribution to any discussion as it relates to the budget. But given that we do not have the document and we want to give them ample time to do an analysis of it, it doesn't really augur well for a meaningful discussion.
And I am saying that you could have told our producers the same thing that you're saying, so that there wouldn't be something like this.
Well,
so we're going to take a short break, and we'll excuse Dr. Gawe. Dr. Gawe, thanks a lot for coming for a few minutes. And, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Get cooking! Ruby Gas, clean, safe, and reliable LPG is the perfect solution for your commercial and everyday needs. For cooking at home or barbecuing, choose Rubigas LPG cylinders. Available in a variety of sizes from 20 to 100 pound cylinders. Rubigas LPG. Clean, safe, reliable. Are you cooking with Rubigas?
Get Rubis, get going.
Shop and win at Real Value this Christmas. Anyone spending $50 or more can win $5,000, $2,500, and $1,500 in cash and shopping vouchers. Simply place your receipt with your name, address, and phone number in the barrel provided. Promotion starts November 21st and runs until December 23rd, with the grand draw of the morning of December 24th. Plus, anytime you use your Real Value Shoppers card, you can win day passes to Royalton, hamper baskets, wine, and more. Promotion runs from November 21st till December 30th. Shop at Real Value this Christmas.
Experience data on the fastest, most reliable network. Our new Christmas specials are just for you, giving you the best value. Buy and stay on any Christmas plan and get 10 gigabytes any use data on us every month for a year. That means 10 gigabytes more every month for more music, more entertainment, and more sports. It's the Christmas that keeps on giving. Available exclusively on our new Christmas plans. Hurry in store today to get your 10 gigabytes in this limited time offer. Digicel. Merry Christmas.
The Rotaract Club of Grenada East presents Kids Fun Day and Football Knockout on December 10th at the Victoria Park, Grenville. The fun day begins from 1 p.m. up to 6 p.m. and the football knockout competition will start at 3 p.m. Admission $10 for adults and $5 for kids. Parents, bring your kids to enjoy bouncy castles, face paintings, selfie photo frames, and much more. For the adults, there are exciting prizes to be won. Compliments the True Blue Bay Resorts. All proceeds are in aid of community development projects. See you there.
Looking for expert in sounds, stage and lighting engineering? Double D Sound, song reinforcement and public address system, rentals for concerts, weddings, meetings, conferences, live shows, parties, and crusades. Double D Sound. We also sell all types of musical instruments, accessories, and replacement parts. You looking for intercommunication and programmable bell systems, especially for schools? Double D Sound. Looking for amplifiers, speakers, keyboards, matching drums, wind and percussion instruments, transistors, and more. We rent stages of any size, concert stage, lighting, party, tents, tables, and chairs. Call Double D Sound, 405-9685. Hearing and feeling the difference. Double D Sound.
Welcome back, and I would just want to utter a bit of an apology here because I wasn't expecting this as the host, and our producers really were not expecting anything like this, and I would like to comment here. I think that this was despicable, shameful, and verging on vulgar. If you didn't want to appear on the show, I don't think you were equipped to do that, you could have told us that and allowed the program to go with smoothness. Whatever the case is, let bygones be bygones. We've got important things to discuss here tonight. So let's go across to you now, Mr. Church, and tell us a little bit about your thoughts. How important is a national budget?
Yes, good evening to our audience at home and abroad. And I wish to endorse the brief presentation given by Dr. Fletcher on the question. But I also want to add that this budget today was a special budget. And while it fits into all the characteristics as defined by Dr. Fletcher, I want to make the point that given the theme and the context, that made it very special. Because as we prepare ourselves as a country towards 2035, and hopefully the satisfaction of all the sustainable development goals that have been established and set by the United Nations, and all the threats such as climate change and the good and the bad of globalization. When we take all those things on board, today's budget was a very special and unique one, because for the first time in a long time, we saw an effort on the part of government and to some extent citizens to begin to plot a pathway to our national development in a sustainable manner. Maybe we'll see much more about it, later on.
All right.
But I do endorse what Dr. Fletcher said. But I think I should have made that point.
And the Prime Minister, in fact, talked about, prior to the presentation of the budget, how involved stakeholders and people in the community, in town hall meetings, they got involved. Is there a bit of freshness about this, Mr. Church, the whole involvement, or rather than a special brand of people who will sit and determine what the budget, the national budget, should look like?
Certainly, and I want to add also that I did understand from some of the utterings of the Prime Minister that consultation process that has started was not only intended to inform what was presented today, but the consultation is going to go on. And in my humble opinion, I think that kind of a consultation that I sense would be one where people would come again from time to time, periodically, to assess and evaluate, to see what we did beautifully, where we erred, and what changes we can make, corrections, and so on. And that is a very, very fresh breath of air.
Do you concur, Dr. Fletcher?
Absolutely. I concur with what my brother Church has just indicated, and I want to add a few things about the process, Mr. Church. I think today I sat in the Parliament building, and at the end I felt a sense of relief. It was over 3 hours, and the audience there, including myself, were really captivated by the delivery of content, the delivery of a map that we were seeing for a long time, where we're going to be going as a country. And therefore the budget in many respects represents that. I also want to add the issue of the consultation. As I listened and as I followed the election campaign and so forth, and what eventually came out of the budget today, I will surmise that the preparation of that budget started during the election campaign. I think the town halls that were held during the election campaign by the National Democratic Congress, a lot of that sort of information, suggestions, recommendations, I think eventually worked its way into this budget. And this augurs well for the future of Grenada, Carriacou, and Pitima. I think it augurs well for the country, because it means that the Prime Minister and his party have really listened to the people. That even when we think that probably they were not listening, they were listening and taking notes. And that trajectory continued into government and into the work that was done by the Public Policy Department, the Budget Plan Department at the Ministry of Finance, to get us to where we are. So the budget, today's budget, in my view, represents a consolidation of the NDC government in office. Up to this point, we are seeing the political aspect. They have won the elections, they're in office, and everything was, taking shape. This budget really said, we have arrived. This is the map, this is the roadmap that we are putting down for the development of this country. And here is how we're going to get to where we want to go to. 2035. And this is really good. I mean, because the foundation, this budget has really laid the foundation. In fact, I described something as what I call it's about the 4 Ps. I think the budget was fundamentally about peoples. It was about processes, it's about policies, and it's about programs. And that gives people a sense of a new direction, a new beginning compared to the other years. So I certainly concur with what Brother Church has indicated.
Okay. The Prime Minister said that his administration will introduce a social partners committee comprising representatives from the government, labor unions, private sectors, churches, non-governmental organizations, and youth to help steer government's policies going forward. That sounds impressive. Is it something you really anticipate would happen, Mr. Church?
Well, in fact, I think it has begun.
Okay.
It started a little while ago. And as Dr. Fletcher pointed out, I noticed a fair amount of that was being done, and during the campaign period. and promises were made. And I still see today that those promises for consultation, are being fulfilled. So I think, and son, that's a very, very healthy thing that we must continue, because in development, in national development, we always, as policy makers and political leaders, we must at all times make that very special effort to involve the people. I know sometime before and so on, in earlier time in our history, we did a lot of that. And nothing is wrong with it, And I want to add here, brother, that while the government has informed us that they would take that route and so on to involve this sort of a community thing and so on with these different special groups, I would want to refer to them as, for want of a better term. The touching base with the ordinary working class person must not be lost in the process. That is extremely, extremely important and essential if we're going to get buy-in into the whole national development program or agenda, whatever we want to call it.
Okay, so the big magic figure, 1,350,465,246. Now, the Prime Minister talked about fulfilling commitments made, of course, during the elections campaign. And to date, he stated a total payment estimated at $75 million to 525 retirees. I think that was something that the entire country and population was in fact looking to see whether it would happen. It was a big move. The figures were astronomical. And I mean, I listened it with some measure of concern, and I really wanted to see whether this was indeed possible. And this administration seemed to be adamant during their campaign that this is possible. We're going to get this thing done, and it's going to happen before 2023. They've kept the word, haven't they, Dr. Fletcher?
Absolutely, they have, and I think it augurs well for the governance of this country. Let me just bring 2 points together here. One, the latter point, the payment.
Okay.
That promise made, promise met. Right? That builds trust. It builds confidence in the people. On the other hand, the Prime Minister went on to indicate that he's going to set up a mechanism of people's participation in the governance of the country. Now you bring these two things together, trust and confidence, and the mechanism to enhance that trust and confidence, to leverage that. I can only see that being good for Grenada CARICOM Martinique. I can see that as returning probably to the period 1979 to 83, when we had this outburst, this outpouring of people's participation through village councils, community groups, and so on, getting involved in the community. And I think the convergence of this trust and confidence and the mechanism to contribute towards the development of the country augurs well. So what the budget speech has in fact indicated, and probably something we didn't quite touch on as an objective and purpose of the budget, it indicates how the government intends to govern. It's an indication that the government intends to govern through people's participation, through people's involvement, the workers, youth and students, various the NGO community, right? Special interest groups. This is important, and it helps in the feedback that I have gotten thus far of people saying this is a good budget. And the goodness was not a reflection of the allocation of the $1.3 billion. I think the goodness, as I listened to the people responding, was fundamentally saying, we're getting a feeling, we're getting a vibe that this is a good thing that's about to happen to Grenada, that this is really and truly about people and development. Because if you notice about the one of the things I discern from the budget, yes, there are a number of projects and so on that will be done, but for once you get a sense that this budget was not about how many roads, mileage of roads we're going to build, how many structures we're going to be putting up, although that is there, but the presentation certainly makes you feel that this is about me as an individual. How 2023 is going to be looking for me in education. The largest proportion of the budget goes into education, followed by the agricultural sector, by health and wellness, agriculture, and so on. So it's really people-centered, people-focused, but more important for me from a practical policy point of view, what this budget has indicated today is has laid the foundation for growth and development with people's participation and people's empowerment. So I certainly think that we are on, the government has set a good step, a good foundation for this country.
Your thoughts, Mr. Church?
Yes, I do agree. And while on this point, I also gathered from the budget that there's this message that you as a citizen, you own Grenada.
Yes.
And whatever the Grenada produces, it is yours. And there are points in times when, in a very tangible way, you're going to share of the fruits. But you have to participate. You have to contribute. And it is not surprising that while the emphasis, or the greater emphasis, was placed on building that, starting to build that foundation for takeoff, national takeoff, the budget did not lose sight of the immediate and short-term needs of the citizenry. And that is reflected in the decisions that came out this today regarding the dropping of or the decreasing of VAT, for example, from 15% to 7.5% on electricity, the lowering of the petrol tax from $5 to $3.50. I do hope that those persons who are involved in the transportation business, the bus drivers, etc., would see that as an opportunity to further improve, the profitability of their businesses. Even the intention to review the minimum wage, that is something that when it materializes, I think would redound, with tremendous benefits for the working class people, So while we have a long-term trajectory, we have not lost sight of the immediate to short term, because with all the pressures and so on from imported inflation and things like that, these measures would go a long way in alleviating the pressure that would have fallen on the working poor, working class people, had it not happened.
Yeah. Dr. Fletcher, there is a concern across the country. Some people are talking about the expenditure and the fact that so much money has to be spent in regards to our retirees and pension benefit, etc., etc. And the budget now being $1.3 billion, whether government's revenue would be strong enough to balance revenue versus expenditure.
Great. Good concern, but the budget dealt with that today very nicely. And it shows really and truly that we have the capacity in this country, among our people, to really govern this country in an effective and efficient way that makes sense. So let's talk about the expenditure and what it means for our people. So the government came in, and you remember during the campaign, the NDC not in office made a commitment to pay the pension.
Yes.
At the time, the estimated amount was $60 million. That was a figure that was about $65 million. And they said, they're going to pay it. The solution at the point, one of the solutions put forward by the NDC at that time in opposition, was that we are prepared to borrow. They're saying they are prepared to borrow to finance it. Lo and behold, that didn't happen. Right? They didn't have to borrow to finance that payment. That turned out to be $75 million, and that augurs well. That was a big pot. And then you had the payment of the duck salaries.
Yes.
Right, of 1 point something million dollars. So a significant of outpourings of money. So the concern is therefore, all this money has been spent, and today we saw an interesting thing again in the budget. Do you know that the government is given up approximately, by conservative estimate, because I haven't time to really do the deep analysis of the budget, probably in the region of close to between $40 to $50 million in various concessions, VAT reductions and so on, direct benefits to people, over close to probably $50 million. And I think the message that has been sent there is saying, look, and I'm going to piggyback to what Brother Church has said, is that as government, this is really genuine shared sacrifice, shared benefits. As government, we are prepared to help you to grow, to develop, to become economically independent and so on. But in return, we expect productivity from you, value for money, and so on. So I think it's part of the scenario. So the concern about whether, in fact, the revenue is going to meet the expenditure is valid. Very important. Last point on this. I left it for last.
Right.
This is a surplus budget. This budget reflects that we're going to have over $62.5 million,
yes,
thereabout, in surplus. It means that there was a tremendous amount of thinking through that went into this budget preparation, that people really got down to the nuts and bolts and look at the expenditures, look at the incomes. And that has been achieved in an environment where really I haven't heard of any serious new taxes or increases in any significant way of charges and so forth. It's been done in a way where I see implementation of projects is going to be a major thing to drive the economy and therefore allow the VAT revenues and so to come through on that. It's also going to be financed partly by grants and so on. And there is a soft loan that is expected to come from the World Bank to help bolster that revenue. And I think it augurs well. And once the government is able to continue to keep its promises, I am hopeful that the citizens, we the citizens, will do our part to ensure that we all succeed. It's not just about the government succeeding or the NDC succeeding, but Grenada succeeding in implementation of projects, programs, and policies that will allow the lifting of all of us.
The Prime Minister, Mr. Church, talked about under his government fulfilling their commitments, expressed that the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and other international financial institution has in fact upgraded Grenada's growth projection for 2022 from a 3.3% in October to 5% at the year end. That's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Yes, certainly. But before I get to this point, I would just wanted to...
That's fine. That's okay.
Now, it is our responsibility and duty as citizens when government promises to do something, especially when finances are involved, to pay close attention to affordability. Okay. But equally important is that we must not encourage government to be lawless. And I think with regards to how this government has been dealing with the pension issue is a demonstration that it wants to be a law-abiding government, because we demand that of every citizen. And we must not lose sight of that. I do believe that that kind of injection into the economy, $75 million thereabout.
That's the retirees you're referring to.
Yeah, but they would be involved to some extent in some productive kind of activities, if I know my people. And the extent to which that would contribute to that kind of a growth, I don't know. I have not measured it, and so on. But certainly that is going to play a part. You know. The other thing too, and so on, that is very interesting is the response from otherwise unemployed or underemployed young people who have been taking up some of the concessionary monies and so on that are being offered for the startup of small businesses. Okay, that too is impressive, and that most likely and so on will be contributing to this upping of the growth. But I still think that we have a lot to do. We have a lot to do with our productive sector. And I was I got a very refreshed feeling today when the Minister of Finance spoke, about what we have to do as a country to participate in global trade of goods and services. And he was more specific and so on to agriculture and agro-processing products. And I think he got it right on the button. If you notice, and I want people who are listening to listen to me very carefully, because I'm not saying that backyard gardening is not something and so on that we should undertake. I'm not saying that. But for the first time in a long time, we have a government that has finally decided that, look, this small kind of agri operations, all right, as important as it might be to your household, we have to think bigger and notwithstanding our size, get involved in global trade. That is where value is being made, wealth is being created, and we must participate in it.
Great. Thank you. Well, we're going to take a short break. Of course, we've got quite a lot to talk about. We're looking at the budget and doing some budget analysis this evening. A short break. We'll be right back.
Do you know that you can lower your electricity bill by switching to energy-efficient appliances? By switching to energy-efficient appliances, you can help lower your energy usage. Your refrigerator, for example, is amongst the highest energy-consuming appliances within your home as it remains running throughout the day and night. Switching to an energy-efficient refrigerator can lower your electricity bill by up to 40%. As an individual consumer, I cannot impact global fuel prices. However, I can ease the burden of rising fuel rates by switching to energy-efficient appliances. What can you do?
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Spare your pocket, spare the earth, always at Grenlec.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now! We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carrico. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
WeatherGuard Pro. For every project, there's only one Pro.
For over 80 years, we have been the trusted friend you relied on for comfort, support, and guidance. At Lacroix Brothers, we continue to provide the professional quality services you need when a loved one passes on. And now, for your convenience and added financial ease, we offer specially designed funeral packages for only $6,000 VAT inclusive. Special conditions apply. As you plan ahead, we have removed all enrollment fees for our burial society. This offer ends December 31st. Enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home for greater choices at the lowest possible prices. Select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. Serving you from locations in St. George's, Grenville, and Carriacou. Telephone 440-2302. Call us any time of day or visit www.lacroixbrothers.com. Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home, continuing a proud Grenadian tradition of excellence.
Whether you're shopping for hardware, building materials, and appliances, Hubbard's Building Supplies at Grandans is the place to shop. With improved facilities, increased parking, wider variety of products, and a trendy and spacious layout, catering for all your shopping needs. Why wait? Visit Hubbard's Building Supplies today. Now open Mondays to Fridays, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Hubbard's. Quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back, viewers, and we're looking at budget analysis this evening. And we want to step up a bit forward because, as I said, we've got quite a lot to talk about tonight. Gentlemen, we want to look a little at budget allocations, we have noticed that $114.2 million compared to the allocation of $97.1 million in 2022, and that's an increase of $17.1 million. We're talking about the health sector. Dr. Fletcher, how important is this? We've been hearing about health over the years and how important it is to invest in health and to have a better health sector and better health facilities. This is a pretty decent increase allocated to the health sector.
It is, in fact, as you have said, it's a significant increase in real terms, but in terms of the multiplier effect of this, it will be much greater. Because what that allocation has done, again, remember that I said earlier on about the purpose of the budget, it indicates where emphasis will be placed and so on.
Yes.
It's really, in my view, this allocation reflects a deep understanding of the decadence of the existing healthcare system, the absolute breakdown in healthcare that we have been experiencing over the years, the fact that our people have been going without the appropriate healthcare over the years. And this government is now saying, look, we are going to improve on our healthcare system by backing it with the resources, actual resources. So that is significant because it really goes to the health of the nation. Let's look at any night, you're sitting and you look at the death announcement. Look at the number of young people that are dying. People that in their productive life of the most productive. I've been doing some analysis over the years, gathering data and this. And the over 70% of the persons who are every year have been between the productive life. And many of those deaths are caused by healthcare issues, lifestyle issues, all right? And the problem, but then on the other hand, we do not have a healthcare system that is able to take care of our people properly, starting from primary healthcare, what we eat, what we choose to consume, how we conduct ourselves, right? And if, and God forbid, we get ill, what kind of care we have in our hospitals, medication and so forth. So it's really sending that very strong signal as to we want a healthy nation. And a healthy nation that's based on other things. And this is one of the good things about this budget. When you look through the elements of the budget, there is a certain amount of cohesion and coordination and streamlining. So you look at health and the allocation, and you accept what is health money is going to do. Some of it is going to be spent on the new hospital that's proposed, upgrading facilities. But there's also an important element on the health that I want to highlight, and it must not go unnoticed. It must not go unnoticed. The commitment to provide every nurse with an extra $500 per month, $6,000 per year. That, I think, this is a signal to the nurses, to healthcare practitioners, to say we care about you. We expect to build a proper healthcare system. You are an integral part of it. We probably are not in a position to give you the kind of remuneration that you should be getting, but we're making a start. And we are going to put aside $6,000 for 2023 for every nurse. That is important signal. And I think this is one of the reasons people feeling so good about this budget. A sense of relaxation, a sense of comfort. Look at how it's tied into education. You must be able to educate people on wellness issues, how to look after ourselves, how to care ourselves, and so on. And therefore, the education, also the budget is generally for education, secondary school, primary schools, but I'm almost certain that part of that budget as well will deal with issues around this. An educated people, educated society leads to proper health care. And then tying to this with the agriculture. During the break, Brother Church and I have had a quick discussion about the kind of ecosystem that could develop, the convergence that could take place between the health sector, the Ministry of Agriculture and the various departments, the school system, and so on, fisheries. If we have the capacity in the various ministries to deliver on the promises of this budget, we are going to see the coming together of these various sectors once for all in Grenada that will be extremely good and extremely useful for us. So the allocations is useful. It signals just not only how much money will be spent here and there, but the signal and the messaging it sent is important. How does that affect the psychology of nurses, for example, who have been living this country in droves, going to England, to the United States, looking for more opportunities. And they're really saying, you know, the reason I'm leaving? Conditions of work, salaries, the ability to look after my family. So if this government begins in 2023, first year in office, through the budget, as an instrument of governance, as an instrument to say where emphasis is going to be placed, is saying to the nurses, to the health sector, you are valued. You are valuable to this country. We need you here. Our people need you. Our system needs you. Not that the government needs you, you know. The people of this country, your brother, your sister, your uncle, your auntie, your cousin, the community needs you. And we are reaching out in a small way. I think the significance of that to the understanding of the recipients of those monies, the understanding, the psychological impact, I think is very refreshing. Very refreshing. And I agree with Brother Church where you started by making the point that this budget is a refreshing one. It is a breath of fresh air. So the allocation is important, and what we got to see how it affects the primary health care, the medical centers in Grand Roy, in Guelph, in Victoria, in Tivoli throughout the country. How does that come out? And that is where accountability comes in now. This is where monitoring and evaluation comes in, right? Where the citizens, and this is why this mechanism that the government has meant, that the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister has mentioned, is so important, because this will be part of the mechanism of monitoring implementation of the budget. And then the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance also mentioned the quarterly town hall meetings, where I suppose the MPs and ministers have to go back to your constituency and report. It's an opportunity for citizens to really come out and participate in those meetings and let the government know how you feel, how the program or programs are impacting on your lives, and what difference it's making to your lives. So that would be my response to this one.
You know, recently I was doing something for a regional organization, and it involved going around and interviewing a number of government officials, including permanent secretaries. And I asked the same question about budgetary allocation. And that particular permanent secretary gave me a very interesting response. His response, in summary, was, look, I'm not interested in budgetary allocations as much as maybe other people are. But here is what I'm interested in. How my Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Agriculture, all right, could come together and understand that this problem here is our problem. And irrespective of the allocations we have, how we can contribute to it. And I thought that was very interesting. We were talking about the school feeding program and things like that. And maybe at times we make too much out of allocations and not enough out of how we can, you know, seek and find synergies, you know, and make everybody better off.
Yeah, how you can synchronize. It's interesting, though, that several individuals told me that they look forward to the day when they have a toothache, for example, that begins at 6 in the evening, can be dealt with at some point in the night rather than having to go through another 12 to 14 hours. I think all of us, maybe with the exception of Dr. Fletcher, knows about a toothache. The teasing him. And how excruciatingly painful it can be, particularly at night. And I'm very surprised that at this time in history and modernism that we don't have anything like dental care during the night. And maybe something that this administration should look at, or maybe private practitioners, and see how we can help people, because all of that is part of the health issue, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, dental care and it's all part of it. So it's something that we should look into, and maybe Minister of Health, if you're listening to us, and maybe our dentists out there, that is a great call that has been made by quite a number of people, in fact. Can we have dental services during the course of the night? And I think that's important, isn't it?
If I may just add to this, that while we talk of the presentation of the budget that took place today, as we know, the debate debate starts on Thursday. And I suppose this is where we're going to get much more granular details of, what's going to be done in some of the ministries. Although I must hasten to add that this budget, I suppose the reason it took 3.5 hours, it was a very detailed budget. Very detailed for every sector, the 6 pillars and so that have been identified, transformation pillars, very detailed. So I'm looking forward to the presentation of the different ministers, and particularly to the health issue, how that allocation is going to be spent.
Right.
How is it? But also, I think Brother Church raised a very important question. And probably this is where the Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation comes in. That will basically sit and look, have an eagle's eye view on what's happening in the various ministries to be efficient, not just in a silos manner, but that coordination, that integration. And I think this is what is important. This is where we can have the allocations from the various ministries that come together to solve a problem that makes it work. Because one of the challenges I think we have with our allocations, which at the end of the day reflect in very low levels of implementation, is because governments continue to operate in silos. The left hand don't know what the right hand is doing, or the left hand is competing with the right hand, and we have competing resources. Rather than, we need to create the mind shift and say, look, we are not going to operate in silos because it's not going to solve the problem. We need to create integrated teams that work together. So we have a problem, for example, of having your toothache dealt with during the night. I have had to deal with one recently, and despite the fact having a brother that's a dentist, I had to wait next day. Right? I had to wait next day to
that's
get it done, right?
Is it?
It is, right? I had to wait next day, right? So we have this problem of access to health care 24/7. How do we resolve it? It has to do with not just the health practitioners, but issues of transportation.
Yes.
Not everybody has a private vehicle that will be able to drive. So what it says for public transport, what it says for pay and compensation for the health workers, particularly those in the public sector. If you have to now provide 24-hour service, what are the pay and compensation implications? So you have here Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Transportation, and so coming together to work to find a solution to this issue of how do we provide 24-hour service for health care, right? Beyond the sort of emergency service that you go to and get it. But dental health is particular. So I agree, and I want to ride on this point that Brother Church made for a while, of the need for the integrated approach, an integrated approach. What is now termed, there's a very sexy term calling all of government, the all of government approach, right? Very nice term, right? Which basically says, let's stop operating in silos, right? Let's come together and really work in an integrated way to solve problems.
Okay, again, as I say, we have such a lot to talk about, but let's just continue along the trend of allocation. And we have something historic here in that 193.9 million allocated in contrast to 182.5 in 2022. That's an increase of 11.4 in regards to education, youth, sports, and culture. It's a big jump, but it's an important jump, isn't it, Mr. Church?
Education, sports, culture. I've always contended that we've never spent sufficient on education. I look at the problems that we have, for example, let's say in mathematics and science. But we try to solve that problem at the National College. And that's why we are failing all the time. But the roots of the problem started in preschool. And I'm pointing to that to make the point that when it comes to education, it speaks to how we prepare our citizens from that point there to be productive later on. And you see that foundation? We have to pay more attention to it. We need to pay more attention to education at the preschool level. So while I welcome that added allocation, and of course you shared them, among other things, in terms of the implementation, I would very much like to see us pay more attention to education at those levels. Because if we do it well there, we're not going to have the problems that we're having at the national college level, let's say when it comes to maths and science and things. And these monies, if spent, to develop and build those systems, it will be money well spent. In my mind, it is not enough, but it is what we could afford.
Okay. Dr. Fletcher, we wouldn't want to stay too much longer on these allocations, which obviously is very important. But interesting here, creative economy, right? It's something that sounds a little bit new to us.
It's a new one. It's a new one.
It's a new one. So help us to understand this term, what it's all about, this new dubbing creative economy.
Creative economy.
And the $3.4 million allocation.
Right. I think it is the amount really. It's a good start to start. But the creative economy basically seeks to augment the natural skills and talent of our people in music, in the performing arts, in cultural performances, right? In storytelling. The fact that we have lost a lot of our storytelling skills, a lot of stories have been lost, right? So that ministry and that area, as I understand it, is really going to seek to augment all of this and to begin to focus on the leveraging of those as an economic pillar now, right? So we had, for example, the Ministry of Culture, which basically look at cultural policies and so on, and not seeing culture as a revenue stream, a possible revenue stream. So when we look at countries like Jamaica, for example, and the outpouring of music and talent and so on that comes from Jamaica, where did it come from? So I think what the attempt here is to identify those skills and talents and begin to really turn that, to monetize it. For example, many of our elder citizens have extremely good storytelling skills, and they have good stories to tell that can be monetized, but we have not captured it. we have not captured it and stored it and then find a way to market it out there. We have good performers, musicians, artists, painters, and so on. We need to be able to get these people organized, get communities organized and structured in a way that allows them to improve and increase and earning capabilities, and to really, like Jamaica, like Trinidad, like some people in the developed world. So we want to see artists come here. We want to see performers on the big stage, and we have the makings of those. I mean, I can't remember the young lady name now, but we have persons. I think she's a SEALs from whose parents originate from Montmorris. She's quite a big hit in the U.S. Right? We have sportsmen and women who are also, doing great things. We have great musicians. So the idea is really to begin, as I understand it, to organize this and create an avenue for young people, talented people. And this is one industry, by the way, that transcends age groups, right? Because an old person, what you call maybe an elderly person in their 70s, who have good faculties and who can tell a story or can give a good Grenadian folklore dance or tell a good Grenadian folklore story, can be part of that industry. So I think it augurs well, allowing for the use of our talents.
Your thoughts about it, Mr. Church?
I think that's a very good initiative. While Dr. Fletcher was talking, I recall when I was then a minister in government, when Carnival came around, I had to find money to give guys, to go and cut a record, how you call it?
Yeah.
And good composers, and some of them are some very good singers. And with that facility around, and so maybe and so on, they will be brought to a point where they start realizing and understanding how they could make money out of that talent.
Absolutely.
So I think, and so that's a good starting point.
Very nice.
There's a guy from he's Baby Killer's brother. He's a map. This guy comes out with some beautiful music, some beautiful calypsos, very deep at times. But he don't have the resources, to really push him along.
All right. Now, while on the subject of education, youth empowerment, sports culture, we realize that there are going to be a re-examination of the Imani program. So there was a lot of talk as to whether it will be dissolved, whether it's going to become obsolete. We're seeing that it won't be, but there'll be some transformation, some restructuring, I would think, concerning the program, and that should be very important. And I guess we'll be all looking to see that restructuring, what it's going to look like, how it's going to be rebranded, so to speak. Dr. Fletcher.
Yeah, I really look forward with great anticipation to see what the new restructuring, the new the reimagining of the Imani is going to look like. Certainly, as has been explained today and in previous pronouncements, there's a need to give young people a roadmap to success, a roadmap to becoming what they want to be, of achieving the goals and ambitions in life. And it has always been felt by some, and certainly from a public policy perspective and from a youth development perspective, that the Imani, while being an initial good start, because let us not think it was all bad. It was a good start for young people. It was a way to get them involved, get them engaged, and so on. But it came to a screeching halt really fast. And there is more for young people. There is more that should be done, that could be done for young people. Yes, and I know of a couple of cases only this week. Last week, I met someone who came to the Imani and is providing veterinary services, right, for example. So that's good, that's useful. And I think what the government, this new government is about to do is really take it to the other level. as explained, provide young people with real global skill sets that will create global citizens of our young people, where our people will be able to hone in on skills that would allow them to traverse the world and make their skills available to the world. So I am, without knowing the details of how that new Imani program is going to look like, I think it will make a fundamental difference to the employability of our young people, the skill sets that we are going to have in the country, and have a much more fulfilling human being coming out of Grenada.
Mr. Schultz, what's your thoughts about in the past, what obtains now? What's your personal thoughts?
I agree to all the things that Dr. Fletcher said there. But from experience, host, I'm hesitant to express how I feel about the Imani thing, honestly. But I do agree with those positions you've established. I don't think they necessarily have to happen within the Imani and so, but that's a personal thought that I have that I don't really.
Okay, so let's move along. I think we're going to be having a short break just now as soon as the indication goes. And we will want to give callers an opportunity to just call in. Time is fast spent, but I'm sure that there are a few people there who would want to call and talk a little bit about the program, about the budget. Just give us some thoughts. What do you think about it? You like the budget? You don't like it? Is this a very nice one, or is it lacking something? We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back for our last segment, we'll be entertaining some calls. Don't forget the number. It's going to be 440-1252. We'll be right back.
Mingle and Jingle.
You mean jingle and mingle, right?
Does it really matter? Mingle and Jingle, the mid-morning program that will drive the Christmas season. Weekdays from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Classic Radio, GBN Television, and all GBN social media platforms.
It's where the deals of the season are, where the Christmas music is played, holiday traditions are relived, and where all the fun is.
Mingle and Jingle.
Or Jingle and Mingle. Mid-mornings from November 14th to December 23rd only on the GBN network.
Made possible by
Flow,
West Hall Rums,
Hard On Plus,
Duty Free Caribbean Holdings,
Ace Hardware,
Gittins Healthcare, and
Grenville Credit Union.
Welcome back. Just to remind you, of course, the number to call is 440-1252, 440-1252. The number is right there on the screen. You can give us a call if you want to chime in and give your thoughts about the budget presentation. Now, we're looking at reinvigorating the economy of Carriacou and Petit Martinique affairs. And if we did not touch that, all Carriacouians and Petit Martiniquans, they should really chide us for that. But a sum of 22.8 million, an increase of 3.3 million over the last year, is provided for the 2023 budget. Carriacou should be happy about that, Dr. Fletcher?
I really think so.
Or not enough?
Well, all sectors can say not enough. All parishes and constituency can say, well, it's not enough, I need some more. But as, expressed earlier on, is what is affordable at this time. Carriacou is an important part of, Carriacou and Petit Martinique, may I add, are important parts of Grenada,
yes.
Important constituencies. And they do have some unique features, I think, that we can leverage. For example, Carrick has always been known good as pasture lands for livestock. Can we have Carrick, for example, specialize in creating livestock for the country? There were times I know Carrick produced a lot of limes and you know, many moons ago, cotton. Now we're not going to go back into growing cotton, but peanuts, for example, and so on. And I think the allocation, again, we do not know the specifics of how this allocation is going to be used, but I think whatever additional resources that find itself in a sector or in a constituency also will augurs well. The key thing, though, is how these monies are managed, how these resources are managed and spent, right? Must be targeted, must be prioritized, and must be useful. And one of the points I want to make, I have a good friend who always reminds me, almost on a daily basis. He says, you know, the government can come out with whatever programs they wish to come out with and talk about prosperity and eradication of poverty and so on. But he says, he reminds me that a fundamental thing that we need to look at is law and order. Law and order. If we do not develop at the same time, parallel to all these nice things that we want to do, a law-abiding citizenry, it will undermine whatever transformative agenda that is currently being worked on. All these economic programs, all these education programs. If alongside that, law and order, civics in schools, being good citizens and behaving well, if we do not do that, it will come to naught.
Yeah, Mr. Church. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Carriacou. How important is Carriacou and Petit Martinique in the whole scheme of this budget and the overall economy of the tri-island state?
Carriacou and Petit Martinique are very important to our economy. I would venture to say that the most disciplined and organized fisher people come from Carriacou and Petit Martinique, especially Petit Martinique. In fact, these people of there and son are involved, most of us don't know, they're involved actually in fish exports to the European market through Martinique and Guadeloupe. And when I heard today about the facility, the fisheries facility in Carriacou, that new facility, I was very pleased, because that is an area that we can even improve on our collections of foreign exchange. I'll tell you what I mean. The more we can do to assist and support our fishers with the improvement in the quality of fish that is landed, the more revenue we earn.
Agreed.
As it is right now, when you look at the grading systems for fish exports, we in Grenada produce a very small, a minute percentage of grade 1 fish, top quality fish. Carriacou is doing better than us. But the more of that, the better for us as an economy. I also want to establish that Carriacou is one, if not the best place for source of production. And aloes play such an important role in certain products these days, beauty products and even stuff we eat and drink. The dryness, the aridity and so on in Carriacou lends itself to us doing that kind of a crop up there. Marby is another thing and so on that would do well and so on. So there are things that we can do and improve, okay, by bringing Carriacou and Petit Martinique on board. And that new trust, hopefully and so on, would bring Carriacou deeper into the fold, the economic fold of the state of Grenada. But I do admit that these people and so on have a sort of a discipline that maybe we don't have, and it augurs well for not just them, but for the entire state.
Okay, so just to go this over, a sum of 22.8 million, an increase of 3.3 million over the last year. That is for the 2023 budget in reference to Carriacou. There is commencement on the Climate Smart Carriacou Ministerial Complex, 1.5 million, and the construction of the Windward Fish Center, which of course Mr. Church just referred to the tune of $0.3 million, and the road rehabilitation maintenance program on Carriacou and Petit Martinique, 3.7 million. That should be very welcoming.
I think so. Yeah, I think the people in Carriacou will be happy.
Yes.
Happy for those major projects along with other things. The other point I want to make about Carriacou, though, as a microcosm of a wider issue, as we talk about fisheries, this whole issue of the marine economy and the blue economy. This is an important part of our economic structure that we haven't paid sufficient attention to. The degree and to the extent to which we have more waters around us than land, and how we can leverage that in a sustainable way for the development of our people, but also the enjoyment of our people, the ability to go on the beach and swim and have fun and so on. So this is of yachting in Carriacou. I understand some of the best lobsters you can eat can be fetched in Carriacou and so on. So rich in seafoods as well, sea moss growing and so on. And then let's expand that a little bit outside of Carriacou to the wider Grenadian blue economy. And how we can leverage that. And I see there is some allocation for the marine economy, and I really hope that we'll put significant focus in 2023 on having a pure and blue water as possible around our seas. The issue of we welcome the yachts and the mariners and all of that, but there is also, we want to use that for economic purposes. So the issue of our sanitation at sea, the disposal of waste at sea and how we manage that, that is transformative. If, for example, in the same week we have trucks going around the country collecting waste and so on, if we can have some guys out at sea collecting waste from the sea, cleaning up the sea waters, making sure it's clean and it's healthy. And also we have in place measures for persons who may break the laws regarding the use of our sea. We have a number of laws, by the way, in our books regarding the sanitation at sea and the disposal of waste, which unfortunately is not quite implemented. So if we can implement that, this will be really transformative. This is where part of the transformative agenda begin to kick in. Right? Because we are not just talking about waste. At one time, we grew up thinking, anything you do not want, throw it in a drain, you're going to get washed down in the sea, and it disappears. Well, you see, now begin to throw it back at us.
That's correct.
Right? So, yeah.
But I see when the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, spoke about the role we intend to play in ICT, right? And so on, it struck me that we also must, as a country, we must start providing leadership in the OECS and in CARICOM. And the ICT thing and so on would help us and so on do that in CARICOM. But as we were talking about the marine and the blue economy, I think we should, as a country, should start engaging the OECS, our OECS sister countries, to demarcate our OECS region, that marine region, just one big thing. What we do later on and so on as individual nations, is left to be seen. But let us demarcate it. Let us, as Grenada, go to the OECS and push this as an agenda, because it's going to be good for all of us.
Okay, we've got a call on the line. This is our first caller. Good evening, caller. Thanks for holding. Welcome to Beyond the Headline.
Good evening, Pastor Worme and Dr. Fletcher and Mr. Church. Does GBN know that they have a volume problem? It's been weeks now. I could hardly hear you tonight on the phone, and normally I get them on 1%, but now I have to turn up to about 8% in order to hear them on the television. Anyway, that's just a point I want to make. I've been listening to you for the past weeks, and I'm wondering if I'm listening to a party political contest or protest or party political contribution on behalf of the NDC. You have there are three, I'm looking at three NDC people here on my screen, and I'm just wondering, for the sake of the budget debate, couldn't you have brought in somebody else with another point of view, so we can hear an overall ideas of what people think of the budget? All I'm hearing is people who are on the side of the government and think that what the government is doing is the best thing. I'm not saying it's not, but
I don't know if you can really say that you've got three NDC advocates here. As far as I am concerned, I am hosting a program, and I do my best to ensure that I host this program with proper balance and not with political bulging, so to speak. So that's my responsibility. And in case you're not aware, we had somebody who came in earlier on and did in fact say that he's representing the New National Party, that read a statement and then he left the set. So to claim that kind of accusation is not fair at all. Thanks a lot. Okay. Yes, so we can continue.
No, so parts of these things, and I mean, so that this, for example, my last comment on the blue economy and the need to do things is not saying that the government of the NDC is doing everything right. It's basically pointing to say this is something that needs to be done. So if the caller is concerned about that, I don't think any of us says, well, everything is all honky-dory. We says that some allocations probably should be more. Okay. And I think the purpose is really to discuss the budget and to give light to what is in there.
Okay, Doc, we've got another caller. Caller, good evening. Thanks for holding.
Yeah, good night to Pastor Worme, and good night to your esteemed guest.
To you too.
I think I would share the sentiment with your panelists who said about the sense of hope. Whether you like the new people in government or not, the atmosphere that was created today in terms of the budget debate is a departure, a mass departure from the past. And I think we should really embrace that. In fact, it was over 3 hours. And it seemed as though it was just like a few minutes. I mean, the way the Prime Minister dealt with the thing. And it would seem to me that it was not just a kind of conjecture, so they're putting things together to make people feel good or make things look good, but a real attempt to try to paint a picture as to what the situation and what to look forward to. I do agree with Dr. Fletcher, in which he said the person, and I'm one of those people that says we could have all the good programs, ideas for doing things, but if we don't really establish law and order in this place, which is almost lawless, maybe spinning top in mud. In addition, I think one of the areas I'm a bit not too satisfied with is the allocation for community development. I think that we should put more into that, more into community development. Also, the Prime Minister mentioned about the issue of violence, about the crime and situation. I think we should pay more attention to that. I'm really happy that emphasis or some effort will be made on the issue of mental health, which I think again is in dire need for attention in Grenada. But overall, I know that it will not be an easy task, And like I was on a panel yesterday, I was on a session yesterday dealing with the situation with Latin America and how the new government in Latin America, particularly in Brazil, will have a hard time building, undoing the damage that was done by the former president. I think we have a similar situation. One thing I was not satisfied with, although maybe the Minister of Foreign Affairs would deal with that, is how we going to deal with South and Central America, especially in the new dispensation, where I think Lula said he made a mistake when Chavez talked about the currency thing, and he's going to revisit that now. So I thought I should raise that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for your contribution, caller. We certainly do appreciate that. Before going much further, Dr. Fletcher, Mr. Church, I have always been concerned, for example, of our citizens with disabilities. I think over the years we have treated them rather shabbily. They already got disabilities, as you know, and we have not done a whole lot to make life a little bit more accommodating. And I really would like to see somehow within this package that we can help our disabled individuals to bring a greater sense of comfort to them. They can feel a part of the citizenry in the country, and though they have an impediment, they should still feel that we are contributors to the overall development of the country. So say me, what say ye?
I agree with you.
I want to agree with you. And in many cases, those disabled persons are disadvantaged in other ways. And that makes it even a graver issue. To begin with, I think we have to build the sensitivity of our nation, okay, with regards to the disabled population. That's one thing. But secondly, we have to make the disabled people know that they have value. How we do it, and so on. I have not given much thought to it, but we need to do that. I don't know the schools, the special schools that we have. I don't know the extent to which we have given sufficient attention to them. Equipping them, properly. School for the deaf, school for this, whatever, And I have to admit that as an individual, and maybe and son, I can extend it to the nation, generally speaking, we have not done justice to these people. We have not done justice. And maybe that's a wake-up call for us, And going forward, when we prepare, as we continue preparing and so on for our nation's development, we must bring these people on board. Yeah. I think we have neglected them, by and large.
Dr. Fletcher?
Yeah, I certainly concur with the views expressed here. It is a vexing problem. In my view, it's a vexing problem. We have to deal with it on the human side, people to people, get to create more awareness for empathy with persons, not necessarily somebody. I don't want sympathy, empathy, understanding the other person's point of view and providing for them. And therefore, I hope that in this budget, that there is some allocation for doing and taking actions to assist, including legal actions. For example, access to businesses and public spaces for the visually impaired and for the physically challenged. What are we doing? I hope that there are laws that part of the whole legal framework going forward, the agenda will include really mandating persons when you're building spaces for public access, issues to deal with the disabled, whether it's visual, physical, so it's also dealt with. The other thing in education, large education budget. I really do hope some of that will be spent on identifying some of the disabled or some of the incidences of things that can deter learning, that can influence the issue, for example, of visual, seeing, hearing, other kind of tests that are usual at a very early age, testing the children's population, right, to identify things that can affect them later on. This is all part of disabilities. Historically, we thought of disabilities by somebody visual impairment that cannot see at all, or that lost a limb or so and that cannot walk. But this disability now coming in various ways, much more subtle sometimes. It pops up at later stages in their life. So I really hope that the government pays attention to that. And probably this is what the caller a while ago mentioned, probably when you talk of some of these things in community development, and so we can look towards and invest, really make an investment. These things are investment, they are not cost. Investing in your human resource, investing in your ability, and also, you know, probably by the way we treat such persons, we're also not allowing them to participate in the economy and the social life of the country. They become locked in or closed in because the society does not accept them. Where do they go without, you know, having serious challenges in being mobile? So I hope that the health and wellness budget, the community development and social development, the social development budget, they have elements in them that are going to focus on their target group.
Okay. Well, the time on the clock says that it's time for us to go, so I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds just to give your closing statement, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, our audience would have heard us throughout, if they had listened throughout. And I want to make, as my closing statement, a call for greater attention to be given, or greater support to be given to the Food and Nutrition Council, especially in the context of the work that they do for the school feeding program with the Ministry of Education. They come under agriculture, but they do a lot of work concerning the schools. And I want us to start looking at that kind of a support, not as a cost, but as an investment in the future of our children. If we can do that for our children, by the time we get to 2035, we'll be fairly well off.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Fletcher.
Great. I want to say that the 2023 budget offers an opportunity for the citizenry of Grenada to really get engaged and get involved again in helping to influence the governance of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. It's an opportunity for us to not just sit and ask, well, what am I getting from it, but also what am I contributing and how we can contribute and organize to get that done. The budget in many respects indicate, well, you know, we must live within our means. It's not excessive. I don't think I've seen reckless spending exudes in it. The fact that there is a forecasted surplus, I think means well. I also want to go back. Sometimes we forget the persons who work so hard to present these budgets, right? The workers in the Ministry of Finance and the various ministries and so on who have contributed to that, but also the people. I really think that the citizens around the country that were consulted in whatever form or fashion made today what it turned out to be. Because through their participation, through their contributions and so on, we have had what we had. I look forward to the debates, as I've said consistently, as I've spoken on this budget. I look forward to the debate. For the first time in a decade, there is an opposition in the parliament, in the lower house, and therefore it will be a good contending situation to see. Ideas may come, things may change as a result. So I look forward to that. But I think today represents a good day for the citizenry. It is now up to us to hold the government accountable for what they say they're going to do. Ensure that it is done in an efficient and effective way for Grenada by Grenadians. The last point I want to make on this issue of the budget, I would like to see the budget reflects a lot of Grenadians. I would like to see Grenadians first, second, third taking charge of our destiny and driving the country forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fletcher. We appreciate your time and your effort. And Mr. Church, we appreciate your time and effort also for appearing on the program and adding quite a salient, well-balanced touch to our discussion here this evening. Much appreciated. And viewers, we want to thank you also for looking at the program, and also those of you who called in and gave your thoughts. We appreciate that so very much. Well, you know, the Bible says that money answereth all things, and it's important for every country to have a very strong fiscal operation. We understand the value of that. But I think even more importantly, the Bible does say that righteousness exalts a nation. So it's not really money that would really bring us through, though that plays a very important role. But don't forget the importance of righteousness. That's all the time we have on our hand tonight. It was a pleasure having you on board. Stephenson, Worme, good evening.